Lucy Maddox's first word hung in the air like a question mark. Daddy. She didn't hear it. She hadn't heard anything for 6 years. Born healthy, Lucy never turned toward voices or flinched at thunder. Bruce Maddox, a hardened Hells Angels president raising her alone, noticed when she was 8 months old. Doctors told him not to worry. He worried. Over the next 5 years, he spent tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours chasing answers. Audiologists strapped electrodes to her head and told him her ears were fine. ENTs shone lights into her canals and said there was no blockage. Surgeons debated implants and then declared her an unsuitable candidate. He sold a custom bike to pay for an MRI. He bought tiny hearing aids that amplified nothing. Each appointment ended the same: a shrug, an apology, and a new bill. Meanwhile, Lucy learned to read lips and feel vibrations. She placed her small hand on Bruce's chest when he spoke so she could feel the rumble of his voice, and tilted her head, tapping a spot that always seemed to ache. Bruce could fix engines and win bar fights, but he couldn't fix his daughter's silence. On a crisp September afternoon, he needed a break from white coats. He dressed Lucy in her favorite red dress, packed juice boxes, and took her to a neighborhood park with rusted swings and browning grass. As she ran toward the swing set, her hair flying, a barefoot boy sat up straighter on a bench. He was about 10, skinny, sunburned, and sharp-eyed. He watched Lucy tilt her head and tap her ear. The boy's name was Tom. When Tom was 7, a shelter caught fire while he slept. His mother pushed him through a window and never made it out. 8 months later, after showing up drunk and disappearing for days at a time, his father simply didn't come back. Tom walked out of the motel room alone and didn't go to the authorities because he'd seen kids swallowed by a system that bounced them from home to home. Too proud to beg or steal, he survived by helping. He swept floors at diners in exchange for pancakes, carried trash at barber shops for a couple of dollars, helped vendors pack up for leftover tacos. He slept under slides and in alleys, staying clean at gas station sinks, because invisibility kept him safe. He developed an uncanny ability to read pain in people's faces. Easing someone's discomfort meant they might share a meal. One morning he saw an old man behind a diner, tilting his head and rubbing his ear. Tom peered inside, spotted a hardened plug of wax, and gently removed it with a paperclip. The man's relief had been instant. That moment flickered in his mind now as he watched Lucy tap her ear. Fear and conscience collided. The man pushing the swing wore a leather vest covered in Hells Angels patches and had arms like tree trunks. Approaching could get Tom hurt or hauled away, but turning away meant condemning a little girl to silence. Tom's bare feet left the bench. He walked toward the swings. Bruce was on him in 2 long strides, interposing his body. "Back up," he barked. Tom raised his hands in surrender. "There's something in her ear," he blurted. "I saw it. I can help." Bruce's grip clamped onto his wrist. He had heard every scam and sob story. He'd been manipulated by people who'd used Lucy to play on his guilt. But this boy wasn't asking for money. His eyes were on Lucy's ear. His voice trembled with urgency, not greed. Against instinct, Bruce loosened his hold. "Quickly," he muttered. Tom knelt in the dirt. He smiled at Lucy, though he knew she couldn't hear him. With a steady hand, he tilted her head so sunlight illuminated the canal. There it was, a dark, compact mass lodged deep against her eardrum. He slid his thin index finger in, feeling for a grip. Lucy frowned at the strange sensation but did not pull away. Bruce's breath caught. Tom used his nail to hook the edge of the obstruction. It resisted, then slowly gave way, sliding out onto his palm. The plug was sticky and dark, roughly the size of a small marble. For one heartbeat, nothing changed. Then Lucy's eyes widened. The rustling of leaves became a roar. Children's laughter rang like bells. Somewhere a dog barked and the sound sliced through the air. Bruce exhaled sharply, and Lucy heard that too. Her hands flew to her ears. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Daddy," she whispered, shaping the word she'd mouthed thousands of times. For the first time she heard it. The hardened biker's legs went weak. He dropped to his knees, crushed his daughter to his chest, and sobbed. Lucy pressed her ear against him and listened to the heavy thump of his heart. She gasped at the sound of her own breath and giggled when the vibration tickled her throat. When Bruce could see through his tears, he looked at the barefoot boy who had accomplished what surgeons and technology had not. "Kid," he said, voice cracked, "you just gave my little girl her life." Tom shrugged, embarrassed. "I just wanted to help," he murmured. In Bruce's world, wanting to help meant everything. He shrugged off his leather vest, the cut emblazoned with the club patch and his road name, and draped it over Tom's thin shoulders. It swallowed him, the heavy leather hanging nearly to his knees. Tom's eyes widened. The weight was unlike anything he'd carried. "You're not alone anymore," Bruce said. "You stay with us now. Family doesn't sleep on benches. Family doesn't go hungry. Family lives." Tom tried to protest that he was a nobody, that he didn't deserve it, but Bruce shook his head. "You saved my daughter. That makes you family, no arguments." Bruce called Dutch, his vice president, from the park. "Get everyone to the clubhouse," he said. Within an hour, motorcycles thundered down the street and leather-clad men with scarred knuckles filed into the common room. They were used to being called outlaws. They had been thrown out of homes and schools. They built their own family because the world had rejected them. Bruce told them the story of the silent girl, the years of doctors, and the barefoot boy on a bench. The room went quiet. Hammer, the oldest biker with a face like cracked leather, stepped forward and offered his huge hand to Tom. "Welcome home, kid," he said. One by one, men with names like Rev and Cook and Dutch followed. No one objected when Bruce declared that Tom would live with them. They knew what it felt like to have nowhere to go. They moved a bunk into a spare room, found boots and jeans in piles of donated clothes, and showed Tom how to lock the door from the inside so he could sleep without fear. Cook fried him eggs for dinner, and Hammer promised to teach him to tune an engine. "You'll need to work," Dutch said, "but you'll never go hungry." Tom enrolled in school the next week. He was behind, but his hunger to learn matched his hunger for food. He surprised his teachers with how quickly he absorbed lessons. He sat with quiet kids at lunch because he understood isolation. In the afternoons, Hammer and Dutch taught him to rebuild carburetors. Rev talked to him about honor. Bruce showed him how to ride safely long before he was old enough for a license. At 7:30 each evening, Lucy would knock on his door. In those early days, every noise startled her. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the creak of floorboards. Tom sat with her on the couch and named each sound. "That's the wind in the trees. That's Hammer walking upstairs. That's your own laughter." She tried out her voice, squealing and humming. He never hushed her. Noise was their miracle. By winter she was making up songs. By spring she was begging for piano lessons. Tom realized that helping Lucy discover sound filled a hole inside him he didn't know existed. Months blurred into years. Tom still woke from nightmares of smoke and abandonment, but now he had someone to tell. Lucy would slip into his room and talk about everything she could hear until he calmed. He grew taller and stronger. His vest was recut to fit him and bore a patch that said "Little Brother." At a family dinner one night, Lucy climbed onto a chair, cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, "I love you." Tom, every biker froze. Tom sobbed, shaking as Lucy leapt into his arms. Bruce placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You're my son now," loud enough for the room. Tom nodded, unable to speak. The boy who had thought he didn't deserve affection was claimed by a family he'd never expected. Bruce's gratitude didn't stop at taking Tom in. At a chapter meeting, he proposed a rule they jokingly called Tom's Law. Any child genuinely alone could find shelter with them. His brothers agreed without hesitation. Within a year, they had taken in a 15-year-old girl aging out of foster care. twin boys whose mother had died and whose father was serving time, and a 14-year-old escaping an abusive home. They fed them, clothed them, and gave them structure. Word of the program spread beyond Reno. Motorcycle clubs in Las Vegas, Carson City, and Elko started similar projects. Within 3 years, 47 children across Nevada had roofs and families because a barefoot boy on a bench chose to help a little girl. Tom tutored the younger kids, teaching them multiplication and how to rebuild a carburetor. Lucy learned piano and joined the school choir. They both volunteered at the shelter where Tom's mother once rocked him to sleep. By the time Tom turned 13, he rode behind Bruce on weekend rides, feeling the rumble of the Harley Echo, the heartbeat Lucy had heard. He studied harder than anyone else in his class, not because he wanted to leave, but because he understood what opportunity meant. He listened to lonely kids because he knew what it felt like to be invisible. When asked by a reporter why his club succeeded, where social services sometimes failed, Bruce said, "We don't see them as problems. We see them as people who deserve a family." Later, when the cameras were gone, he told Dutch softly, "I thought I was saving him. Turns out he saved all of us." Sometimes stories that change everything don't start with prophecy or heroes. They start with a boy too proud to beg, noticing a lump in a little girl's ear. They start with trembling fingers reaching toward someone else's pain. They begin on rusty playgrounds and end in homes filled with laughter. Tom's courage gave Lucy the world of sound, gave himself a family, and inspired a brotherhood to open its doors to dozens more. Bruce learned that family isn't just blood. It's the people who decide to stand with you. Lucy learned that even a whisper matters. Tom learned that kindness reverberates. Miracles aren't thunderbolts. They are the steady hands of a barefoot boy in a park and the roar of a Harley carrying him home.